My name is Dilgard, and I'm presenting about my action research project, the effects of student self-evaluation on written reading comprehension work in 4th grade. The skills of language arts pervade all other subject areas. Reading and writing are essential for every member of the population. Students who are unable to read or write face challenges in all of their curricular areas. Even if a student is gifted in another area, such as the sciences, they can only go so far without the skills of the language arts. It's essential for students to accurately comprehend text in order to successfully navigate any academic subject area, as well as life in general. Writing about reading has been shown to increase comprehension of text. This was shown by Collins, Lee, Fox, and Madigan in 2017. Writing about text can help students solidify meaning. Students also need to be able to self-evaluate in order to assess how they are doing and what steps they might take in order to improve. In order for students to become autonomous readers, thinkers, and learners, they must have the time to practice and the ability to engage in effective self-evaluation. The process of self-evaluation of reading comprehension has been shown to aid in strengthening reading comprehension work. This was shown by Burden, Flowers, and Manchek in 2011. Engaging in both writing about reading and self-evaluation appear to be imperative to producing strong reading comprehension work. It is essential that students be given the opportunity to hone these skills in the elementary years in order to successfully navigate middle school, high school, and life beyond. Looking at the background, with the advent of the Common Core State Standards in 2010, students are challenged to far more rigorous standards, as well as challenged to become autonomous learners. The students in this particular study were coming into the 4th grade underperforming in the area of reading comprehension for the school, and any writing they did about their reading lacked any sort of depth. The students also appeared to lack a knowledge of what the expectations were when they were writing about their reading. The rationale for this study: students were comfortable in the reading workshop setting. They had previously participated in reading workshop and were comfortable coming down to the carpet for a mini lesson and then going off to work independently, allowing the teacher to be able to conference individually and with small groups. The students also had some limited experience with writing about their reading. However, as I previously mentioned, that writing lacked any depth to it. Also, this was chosen for the transference into other subjects with the hope that both the writing and the self-evaluation could be transferred into other subjects such as math, history, and the sciences. The purpose of this study was to describe the impact of writing about reading and the student self-evaluation of that writing on reading comprehension. Students must be able to read at grade level or above in order to successfully navigate all areas of the curriculum. The larger purpose was for these writing and self-evaluation skills to transfer to all other areas of the curriculum and the students' lives in order to facilitate their growth into autonomous learners. The hypothesis for this action research project was with repeated practice of writing about reading and self-evaluation of that writing, students will increase their ability to show their reading comprehension in writing. The first research question was, does student self-evaluation affect written reading comprehension responses based on the 4th grade units of study for teaching reading post-assessment for Unit 1? The second question, similarly, was, does the use of quick writes throughout a unit affect written reading comprehension scores based on the 4th grade units of study for teaching reading post-assessment for Unit 1? A review of the literature showed a vast amount of information supporting self-evaluation as well as writing about reading. What first sparked my interest in self-evaluation was the work of John Hattie. He found in his meta-analysis of over 900 studies of teaching practices that self-evaluation had an effect size of 0.62. As an effect size of 0.40 is equal to a year's worth of growth, any practice with an effect size larger than 0.40 should be given serious attention when we're considering improving student achievement. This effect size highlights student self-evaluation as a key practice in student achievement. The related practice of self-reported grades yielded a dramatic effect size of 1.44, placing at the top of the instructional practice list, and further recognizing the value of students who are able to evaluate themselves accurately in order to accurately report grades. Bingham, Holbrook, and Myers in 2010 found that children possess the capabilities to learn the metacognitive skills necessary in order to self-evaluate, and they said that they should be encouraged to do so. Collins, Lee, Fox, and Madigan in 2017 found that the reading comprehension of 4th and 5th grade students, especially those of low income and special education populations, was positively affected by the implementation of written think sheets. Students wrote responses to their reading on these think sheets and built their comprehension that way. Additionally, the reading comprehension of 4th graders was positively impacted by goal setting and self-evaluation in a reading workshop environment in the work of Burden, Flowers, and Manchek in 2011. The teacher researchers chunked goal setting and self-evaluation instruction, asked students to set goals, and conferenced with them throughout the unit in order to provide personalized feedback. Students referred to their goals often and reset goals when necessary. The participants in this study even chose to institute peer conferences regarding their goals and self-evaluation. The research found that the students who participated in this process made greater gains in their reading comprehension as compared to the control group. The students in the treatment group also showed increased confidence and a more positive attitude toward their work. The participants in this particular study came from 3 4th grade reading rotations. I am the sole reading instructor for the approximately 106 reading students at our site. The groups were Group A, the control group. Group B participated in repeated written responses to their reading throughout the process. 1 to 2 times a week, they wrote responses to their reading. Group C also participated in writing written responses to their reading, and they also learned how to self-evaluate those responses. The intervention was that the participants wrote about characters after reading books at their level, 1 to 2 times per week. The Group C used child-friendly rubrics and writing samples from the units of study by Calkins to self-evaluate. The data that was collected came from pre- and post-assessments where students wrote about characters after reading a short text and self-evaluated themselves. I also made observations of the students in class and in conferences and took a look at their student journals of their written responses. Taking a look at the data from Group A, we can see here that on the pre-assessment, we had 58% of the class scoring at a rubric score of 1, which would put them at the 2nd grade level. 39% of the class was earning a rubric score of 2, placing them at the 3rd grade level. And 1 student, or 3%, was performing at the 4th grade level. No students were above grade level. Surprisingly, 64% of the students in this group accurately self-evaluated on the pre-assessment. We can see here from the post-assessment data that they made great gains. We have 6% of the students now scoring a 1, 73% scoring a 2, and 21% scoring a 3, which puts them at the 4th grade level. Interestingly, 52% were now accurately self-evaluating. leaving me to wonder, were they actually accurately self-evaluating here? Are they just taking a stab in the dark as they hadn't had any instruction on this? The students in Group B, the students who participated with repeated written practice of their work, on the pre-test we can see that 44% of the students scored at a rubric score of 1, placing them at the second grade level. 56% of the students scored at a rubric score of 2, placing them at the third grade level. No students were performing at or above grade level. On that assessment, 35% of the students in this group accurately self-evaluated. For the post-assessment, we can see that 65% of the students were now performing at a rubric score of 2. None of the students were at a rubric score of 1. And 35% of the students were at a rubric score of 3, or meeting the 4th grade standard. 50% of the students were now accurately self-evaluating. Group C, our group that participated in the repeated written responses as well as the self-evaluation instruction. On the pre-assessment, we had 40% scoring a 1 at the second grade level. 57% were scoring a 2 at the third grade level. And 1 student, or 3%, was at grade level. 49% of those students accurately self-evaluated on the initial assessment. On the post-assessment, we see that 1 student, or 3%, was still scoring at a rubric score of 1, and approximately 49% were at a rubric score of 2, and 49% at a rubric score of 3. Additionally, 83% of the students in this group were now accurately self-evaluating. I noticed from my observations of the students as well as their journals that initially the students were writing very little, and they took quite a bit of time to get started. They seemed to not quite know what to do with themselves. Students in the treatment groups, Group B and Group C, became much more comfortable with writing, and Group C additionally with the self-evaluating. Students in those groups also appeared more engaged with the text. They were able to more easily navigate and flexibly work between the text, the writing, and the self-assessment. Conclusions. This study suggests that practicing written responses strengthens reading comprehension work. The students in Group B and Group C both made greater gains than the students in the control group. It also suggests that self-evaluation strengthens academic work, as the students in Group C strengthened both their ability to self-evaluate, as well as that group had the largest amount of students meeting grade level by the end. What this means is that classroom teachers need to be more open to a shifting role as facilitator rather than disseminator of information. Teachers need to know when to push in and when to pull back in order to allow students to do some of this work on their own. Cambro-Fierro and Cambro-Verdun in 2007 found that teachers have a large impact in students' ability to self-evaluate. Students who are given feedback about the self-evaluation process accelerate their learning faster and are able to more accurately self-evaluate. Institutions must provide training. The vast majority of teachers in our districts received their training prior to these new state standards in 2010. Institutions need to recognize that teachers weren't necessarily trained for this facilitator role. They need to offer trainings and the ability of teachers to try things out, make mistakes, and learn how to grow into this role. Things that need to be considered from this study. This study took place over a short time period. Due to the timeline of the university, as well as the school district timeline, the study took place over a period of 4 weeks. I, for one, would like to see a longer length of time in order to really see the difference between the 3 different groups as they go forward. And I will continue to do that in my classroom. Also, the time of year should be considered. Again, due to the timelines of the institutions, this study took place right at the beginning of the school year. So not as much time as normal was able to be put into that individual and small group feedback, as there was still procedures and norms of the 4th grade that had to be monitored at that time. Another consideration for the future would be an addition of a student survey. A student survey would be able to gauge student attitudes towards their writing as well as their self-evaluation, and would be another piece of data that could fit into this study. Again, due to the timing of this study, it wasn't used just because it was the beginning of the year and I wasn't familiarized with the parents or students yet. Another thing to be studied from this research would be the application into other subjects. I believe both the writing and self-evaluation could easily transfer into math, science, history, even physical education. So that would be another consideration for future studies. Ultimately, the goal of education should be to create autonomous learners who are intrinsically motivated to set goals for themselves and work towards meeting those goals. Through this research, I had the opportunity to observe students build their knowledge of what was expected of them, practice developing both their academic skills as well as their self-evaluation skills, and increase their confidence and motivation toward their work. Bingham, Holbrook, and Myers in 2010 stated, "Most accountability systems fail to highlight the learning that takes place continuously throughout the year. Therefore, many educators call for evaluations to include formative classroom assessments that involve students in critical thinking and problem-solving tasks. However, student self-assessment is one type of formative assessment that is frequently overlooked. The data and observations collected during this short-term research project allowed assessment to take place on a continual basis. Teachers must consider that with the use of ongoing self-evaluation, students have the opportunity to accelerate their growth. Instead of waiting for a summative assessment or even formative assessment feedback from the teacher, accurate self-evaluation allows students immediate feedback on a continual basis." This verse from Romans 15:13, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit," has been a verse that I have held tightly to throughout the years. Many times in my life, there have been times when I have felt a peace that can't come from anywhere but from God. I wouldn't have found that on my own. I tend to naturally be someone who worries and overthinks things, and the times I have felt this peace, I know that it can't come from anywhere but him. And I've definitely felt that through this process and completing this master's program. I tend to be a perfectionist, and that's something that I've grown in over the past several years. I have learned to let some things go, and that was something that I needed to work through in this process as well. I needed to be here for my students. I had district responsibilities. I needed to be present for my family as well as complete this task of finishing this master's program, and working on dropping some of the perfectionism and growing in that area is definitely a place I have matured. I am someone who likes to find joy in the everyday. I try to be grateful each day for the little things that I have and take joy in just everyday moments and not wait for the big things to find joy. And I have definitely also found joy in my career. I feel that my career path, God has given me joy since the beginning. Once I chose to switch from another career path I was on to where he really wanted me, I was blessed with just the best job for me that I could imagine, being able to come back to this job through having children and whatnot. And again, with this master's program, I have found just the best timing, that this was exactly the right time for me to be able to work this together with my responsibilities at school and with my family, and still maintain joy doing that and finish this program well. Thank you.